Firstly, very much thank you very much for accepting my invitation and accepting to be on my show called Smart Cherish Thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely, no problem.
So firstly, sorry for coming late.
No worries. It happens.
So I've gone through your profile and I thought to tell about you and the work that you are doing to my audience.
Yeah, absolutely.
So can you please introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Gerald. I live in the Netherlands, and at this moment, I'm working on .NET MAUI at Microsoft. So that is the new cross-platform UI framework that we're going to launch this year in Q2 2022. And besides, just the regular development work, I'm a software developer at Microsoft on that team. And besides that work, I love to do a lot of sessions at conferences, which is now, because of COVID, it's a lot online. I do a little thing with my YouTube channel where I release some content in the form of videos, all about, kind of Xamarin, which is the old name of .NET MAUI, basically, and now .NET MAUI, and basically everything that you want to know as a software developer. So yeah, that's in a nutshell who I am and what I do.
So you are a senior software developer. What exactly you do in Microsoft?
So I do a lot of things, but technically my only job is to work on the product, which is .NET MAUI in this case. And that is, I think the senior part is really key in this case because we have a couple of levels, right? So you start as software engineer 1 technically, but then we get rid of the 1. Then you have software engineer 2, and then senior software developer basically. And to get to that senior part, and especially our team works fully remote. So there is, I think 50% of our people are in the US and 50% are in Europe. And then we're spread across all kinds of countries. And also in the US, they're not in one place. So what is really important about the senior part here, I feel, is that you really have to work autonomous. So you have to, you can ignite yourself. You have to know what you have to do. If you get blocked by something, then you're not gonna wait until something is resolved. You are actively going, to the people that can help you and get these problems resolved. So basically, you get a task or you seek out your own tasks. Of course, there, we're an open source project, so we have a number of issues and some kind of direction that we want to go. But yeah, you just pick up that task and you make sure that you do whatever you need to do, whoever you need to involve to get the task done, basically. But yeah, mostly it's writing code. That's kind of like the core of my job, and together with that, of course, like the CI pipeline, writing tests, writing code, making sure all the features work, that the quality is good, that we make sure that the inline documentation, the API documentation is there. So basically everything that to make this product a success, better than it was before. So yeah.
So I've bought my laptop because I can see you have a lot of experience in IT industry. I thought to tell about each and every job role of yours, what you did, and what was your responsibility. I bought my laptop. I just want to see and ask you one by one.
Yeah, absolutely. That's gonna be a long list.
That's a very, very long list. It took a long time for me to understand what exactly you did your entire life in IT. So it's inspiring.
Thank you.
So the first job you started as a developer in Trade Pack as part time, 2006.
Yeah. So that was while I was actually studying. So I'm kind of like the boring person who just went through computer science study and I got the right papers to be a developer, right? So because I know there's a big discussion on people like, do you need a computer science degree to work in as a developer somewhere? I'm absolutely convinced that you don't need to have that. But I'm one of the boring persons who just, I went to the right school, I got the right things, and I'm convinced that unfortunately it still makes it easier to get into development jobs. But I'm convinced that you can also definitely get a job without that degree. So this was while I was still studying. So this was kind of like a side job to get experience with software development at the same time make some money because I was how old was I then? I think 18, 19, something around there. So I started to get my own place, needed to get money for rent, that kind of stuff. So it was a job, and it was what was the programming language? I think Scala or something. Which was very exotic, to say the least.
So
So it
you
was
worked on flagship product TRM.
Yeah, so it had a lot to do with like commodity trading and which is kind of like stock trading, but that for spices and those kinds of stuff. And it was a product that has existed for a long time. So what I was mostly doing, also working remote, by the way, thinking about it, is just applying bug fixes, creating minor new features because I was working part time, so I didn't have I think it worked 16 hours a week or something. So just adding some minor things here and there, mostly bug fixes and that kind of stuff. So yeah, that really helped get me the experience and not just the theory from school, but also get the experience with actually working on that. So that was pretty cool.
So that was your that was your first job after completion of your education.
No, this was actually during my education still.
Okay, and then you worked as intern. No, in Microsign BV for 3 years. Zwallo in area, Netherlands, software engineer.
Yeah, so I started there as an intern. So what is the concept here in the Netherlands with your education is that we actually value like the hands-on experience, right? So it's not just 4 years of experience pumped into you in your study and then you go out and do your thing. We actually have like depending on where you are in your education, a couple of weeks or a couple of months that you have these internships, so that you get the hands-on experience and see how you can actually work at an actual company. And also, what is the concept here with your education? That if you're in the last phase of your education, then you're going to have like 6 months of that internship, and that's going to be your final test, basically. So you're actually going to go to a company. You're going to work on usually just one assignment because that makes it easier to, review what you've actually done. And you will go there, you will do that assignment, and whenever you make the company happy and the school is like, yeah, this feels like, this is proving that you demonstrated all the skills that you actually need to actually be a software developer, then you get your degree and then you can go out into the world and be a software developer. So and then what happens a lot is that the company where you do that internship, they offer you a contract afterwards because they're looking for people. They know you now for 6 months, and if they like you and if they like your work, then they will offer you a contract and you can stay there and work there. So that's what's happened for me as well. I did my internship there. That went all fine. That was great. And then afterwards, they offered me a contract to work there. I worked on like an ERP system, which had everything, right? So it did inventory for companies. It did like your CRM, so all your contacts were in there. You could do all the administration of your company basically with our software suite. So it was built in Delphi originally. So again, a completely different language. Well, not completely different. It's very similar to like C# these days. But it was definitely fun, and it's now an older language. So I gained a lot of experience there. It was like a desktop application that I would work on, and also they were trying to move to C# and .NET. To modernize all the things. So I also actually my internship was written in all of that. But yeah, so it was kind of like a weird mix. And also there, we had a lot of customers. And we had a couple of consultants going out there, but sometimes there was this real technical problem. So they also sometimes sent me out to their customers to, be somewhere on site and help them with their problems, tracking down a bug or something, see if we could reproduce it and what the root cause might be. And that's something that I personally very much enjoy. Not all developers, I think, enjoy that. They would just, sit at their desk and write code, which is totally fine. But I also like that interaction and with other people and seeing people actually use the product that I'm working on. So that's really cool. So yeah, I did that for a couple of years and then moved on to the next thing.
Any particular incident or experience that you cannot forget as an intern?
Yes, very much. When I started working there, like right after the internship, they said because we had customers and we had this product, so they also had this help desk, right? So this support line, and they thought it was a good idea to put me on that support line for a couple of weeks, like for then you get to know the customers, then you get to know our product because they will ask questions and you will have to find out how to get the answer and where that is in our product. So I wasn't too happy about that, but it's fine. I just started working, so let's do it. And at some point, I recommended something to a customer, and either they didn't understand correctly or I explained it badly. I still don't know what happened, but at least it was kind of like a moment where you drop the whole database from production, right? So they lost a big thing in production, a big set of data, and they were calling me up angry, like, what the hell happened here? This is not great. We have to fix this. It's all your fault. So that was a moment where I was like, oh no, this was my whole career. But we managed. I was going to colleagues, of course, with a lot more experience. They said, don't panic. We have backups. We're gonna make it work. But that's one of those things that you don't really ever forget.
So how can you be so good with talking with a machine and talking with people?
I don't know. To be honest, especially now also working at Microsoft, I mean, I feel like I can do everything. I'm more a generalist, so I can do a lot of things a little, basically, and I'm not really a specialist, so I'm not really deep diving into a lot. But I don't know, maybe I am in some areas. So I've been focusing on cross-platform development with mobile apps for the past year, so I know a lot about that at this point. But I don't know. I always had kind of like these social things, and I like giving these sessions, talking to people, especially teaching people things as well. And that's also why I joined this little interview of yours. Like, I love to tell people that this is my story. And that can definitely happen for you as well, because I would never expect it to work at Microsoft, and here I am. So I love teaching people either something technical or also something career-wise like this. I don't know. It's just there. And back in school, again, I don't know how it is where you are for the people watching, but here in like middle school or high school, then you would have to do these presentations. So you will, to kind of like practice those skills, and you would talk about your goldfish or your pet or something like that. I hated that. I mean, everyone kind of hates that, I think. I definitely hated that. So, I would never expected me to do sessions at conferences around the world. But at some point, especially if you, talk about something that you love, something that you're working on, like the product that I'm working now at Microsoft, it's just really cool, right? You get to talk to people who want to know more about that product, who want to work with that product. So I really love teaching people how to do that, how to get started, and also at the same time get feedback from those people. Like, hey, we've worked with it, and I think you can improve here and there. So that's also really valuable information. So it's kind of like a two-way street. But how do I do it? It's not something that I actually learned. It's just something that kind of happens naturally.
Awesome. Then you worked as a developer via for .NET in Snell Start, May 2013 to March 2015. You worked for one year, 11 months.
Yeah, so that's where it kind of gets interesting, because the company I worked for is called 4.net, which is kind of like a consultancy company. So I would work for 4.net, but the only thing they do is find companies that need help with developers, that need some kind of expertise or whatever they need. So During my time at 4.net, which is a good couple of years actually, I've worked at several companies, one of which is Snellstart, as you mentioned, and I did some other companies as well. So there's that. That's also why there's a big list in my experience, because I was still working for the same company, but at that company I visited a lot of different companies for sometimes 3 months, sometimes 1.5 years, and then I would just be hired by that company. I would just be an employee of that company, but bringing a little bit of expertise that they would need at that time. And that's something, because like the first job that I had was, like I said, I discovered that I'd like to go out to customers as well, and that is part of the reason why I got into the job at 4.net here, because that would involve me going to customers kind of like all the time, right? So that was a very conscious decision, and that allowed me to gain a lot of experience in a relatively short time. Because now in a couple of years, I suddenly worked for 10 companies instead of just one company for 10 years, which is kind of like the safe choice, right? And again, there's nothing wrong with that. If that's what you want, that's perfect. I would love to stay at Microsoft for that long at this point, so that would be great. But at that point in time, at that point in my life, I love to see different companies, see different cultures, meet a lot of people. And because of that, I now have this big network of smart, wonderful people that I can reach out to for different things, while gaining a lot of experience in working at those companies. And also, of course, like my core job, software development, I've seen all kinds of different programming languages, all kinds of different architectures that I need to work with: web, desktop, mobile. So yeah, that was really great.
So any particular experience in that you cannot forget?
Oh, well, there's actually a lot of experience that I still remember. So especially with like the Snell start, this is kind of like this is hard to explain, I guess, because here in the Netherlands we have kind of like this little row of islands at the top of our country in the north, and this company is like on one of those islands. So it's not really a great place, because it takes a lot of driving unless you like actually live there, right? But for us, and that was also kind of like part of the reason that they needed to hire people through this construction, because they couldn't find enough people to work with. Their product was growing, it was going amazing, but they couldn't find the developers, which is a general problem now, but it also was a problem back then. So they contacted my company to hire a couple of people, and here we were, and we were with a group of people, and this was really awesome, because we were younger at that time, and we could drive there on Monday. That we would stay in a hotel for a couple of days, and so that was great, because we became this group of friends there that was from an external company. So we were in hotels and whatnot in the evenings, and we did all kinds of cool things. We went do some tourist things on that island to see some things. We would start running together, doing some workouts. So we would have a LAN party at some point where we just play games for an evening. So it was this really great time in my life, although it was 1.5 years, so it wasn't really that long. But this is still people that I call my friends to this day, and we met there because of that work. So it's maybe not really like work related, but still it's very much a great experience.
Awesome. Then you worked as a developer for 4.net BV full time in July 2012.
Yeah, so I'm not sure, because I know you're looking at my LinkedIn profile, so maybe it
Yeah.
it kind of looks weird there, because 4.net as a company doesn't really do anything themselves besides just finding companies for us to work at. So although I worked there like full time all the time, I was actually working at different companies, like I just described, basically.
Yeah, I got you. So, and also you worked as a developer architect at Kembed full time, August 2015 to March 2017. So, how was that
Yeah.
experience?
So that was interesting, because I moved to another part of the country, and if you know a little bit about the Netherlands, it's not like very big. I mean, you can go to the southern point where I am right now, and you can drive 4 hours to the north, and then you would fall into the sea basically. So 4 hours is about the most you can drive in the Netherlands. So it's not that big, right? But I was moving to a different part of the company, and I tried to make it work with like 4.net, but they were focused on another area in the Netherlands where they would find customers, and they didn't want to lose me, right? They were happy with me, I was happy with them. So they tried to find customers in my part of the country where I was moving to, because I met my wife there, so that was great, and I was moving there. But yeah, it didn't really work. They would still find customers, and that would take me like 1.5 hours drive one way each day, right? Because they wanted to sit at the office there. So that would mean 3 hour commutes every day, and that was just too much at some point. So that was a hard decision. But then I decided to go to a company here locally at this part of the country, and they're also again kind of the same experience, which is really awesome because I moved to a part of the country where I wasn't from. So I knew no one here besides my wife, of course, and a couple of her friends. But I thought it would be important to, also have friends of my own. So that was also part of the reason why I decided to work for a company here locally. And that's what I did. And again, that is still a big part of the friends I have today. So we really had a fun time there as well. So what I did there is a number of different things. So kind of like the difference here is that I would not go to customers to work there, but we would still do different projects for customers, but we would do it on our own office basically. So I would still work with the same group of people each day, but we would still work on different projects. At that time, I was already specializing in Xamarin Forms, so the cross-platform development for mobile devices. So they had a couple of apps that they were working on already, and that is the things that I worked on mostly. But I also did some other things for like a I don't know, accounting software website application, or yeah, some completely different things, and also with different languages. So I worked in some Visual Basic, worked with C#.net, of course. So yeah, I did a number of different things there as well.
Awesome. Then you moved to uh, Calibri as a you become a developer and architect.
I think the order might be mixed up there then, because that was,
Yeah.
well, oh, so yeah, okay, I remember now. So this is interesting. At some point, um, I came back to the company 4.net, so the company we just talked about, right? Because now this was 2 years later or something like that. And like I said, I had a good time at 4.net because they were great. And we ran into each other, me and the CEO there, at a conference where I was giving a session, and he said like, oh, we're still always looking for people. I was like, yeah, maybe it's time for, something, a new experience again. And they were like, we were searching for people, and we always, we had working together, which was great. We have grown a little bit in the time that you were gone, Gerald. So, we can definitely now find customers in your place, your area in the country. So I decided to go back basically. So I went back to the company that I just left, and there I worked again for a couple of different companies. And colibri is a very Dutch word. It's a hummingbird actually. The translation, and they do payrolling for I don't know, mostly restaurants and those kinds of things. So they had also kind of like the same problem, that they couldn't find developers that because developers are, we're with a not that well, we're with a big number, but they still need more. We need more developers in the world. And they couldn't find anything to hire themselves, so they went to a company like 4.net, like, hey, we need a person to help us with all the things that we want to do. So I did a little project there, which was C# ASP.NET, so a little web portal that I created for them, where you could, I don't know, I think it was for registering the times that you've worked, something like that. So as an employee of a restaurant, I could go in there and register the hours that I worked, and that would land into the administration system that they had in the back end. So it was all kinds of APIs tying together a little web front end, and I had a great time there building all that stuff. Both, I was the only kind of developer there at the time, so I had a lot of freedom there to be the architect and think out how the structure would be and do all the things, and also build it at the same time. So that was really great, and they were really happy, I think, with all the work that I did there. So yeah, that was a great experience as well. And I never dropped a table in production, so that was good.
Awesome. And also, you worked as a Xamarin developer at Oreo Software in 2017 for 1 month.
Yeah, that was a short project basically. Also, while working at 4.net, and they had a very specific question. They already had a application. I think that was only running on Windows Phone for the people who are remember that. And they wanted to transform that. They wanted to rewrite that to Xamarin and Xamarin Forms so that it could not only run on Windows Phone, but it could also run on Android and iOS. Um, and that was interesting because that was again there comes kind of like the big network at play that I have with people that I've met throughout my career, because this was a customer who I had met like years before, and now they kind of followed me, and they seen that I was working with all the mobile and the cross-platform stuff. So they reached out to me, and I went to like the company I worked for at the time, like, hey, we have this project, and they would like me to work on it. Can we make that happen? So this was a really short project of a couple of weeks, a month or so, to kind of like help them with rewriting the application to be more cross-platform. So that's really cool. Like, the product is already there, so you don't have to think about the features that might be good or whatnot. They already know that the features that they have are good, that it's working great. But you still get to, get a fresh view from me, looking at it for the first time and say like, hey, why is this this way? Can we change it to be that way? Can it be even better then? While of course rewriting and the things that they do, but part of like the consultancy work is also that you bring your own opinions, your own view, and that little piece of expertise, because the people working on it for years and years would already, they have this kind of maybe tunnel vision, which is perfectly normal, right? That's what happens if you work on something for a long time. It's hard to get a fresh perspective on things. So that's always where it helps if you come in externally. Of course, you want to make sure that you don't come in and pretend to be all arrogant and say like, oh, I know it all better. I mean, that's definitely not what you try to do. But what you can do is, come in with a fresh view, say like, hey, maybe we should consider doing this or that. Have you considered that? Why did it work or whatnot? While of course, doing the thing that you were asked to do, which is rewriting the application in this case. So yeah, that was a fun short project somewhere in between.
Nice one. And you worked as a developer, lead, architect, trainer at 4.net full time.
Yeah, so again, that's like 4.net, the with the project that we kind of like just went through basically, and part of the so that's actually the one thing that 4.net had as their own product, was giving trainings. So what I also did, because I still, I was going out to customers at that time, but I was still doing hardcore development work, which is, a thing that I love. But as is probably clear by now, I also like to teach the people something. So they also provided trainings for like in-house, for in companies, or people would come to us to get some kind of training for Microsoft certificates, or just any subject basically that we could create a little training for. So of course I was doing a little bit of the cross-platform development stuff. I specialized in that. So at some point, there were some customers who were asking for maybe just a one-day training where I would drive to that customer. I would have my PowerPoint and all the knowledge that I gained while working on that. And we would just, do this training session for one day with all the developers in their company that wanted to know more about cross-platform development. Usually it was like in the morning, I would go through the slides and say like, hey, this is kind of like the theory, right? This is how it all works together. This is how the architecture is. This is all the things that you need. And then in the afternoon, we would just sit together and make it more specific to their use case, with like, hey, this is the challenges that we have. This is the app that we want to build. And what are things specific to our case that you can tell us a little thing about? So that was, more the training sessions, which I really enjoy to do as well. But yeah, that's something completely different again from like the hardcore development, and it's just something even better, I feel, because I am just one person. I also only have 24 hours in one day. So if I can use those hours to teach people to also do the things that I can do, then suddenly we have more people that can do things, and that's really cool. That I just am able to transfer that knowledge to other people, and they then can go off and do really amazing stuff. So that's definitely part of the training sessions and all the stuff that I like to do as well.
You're multi-talented and multitasker. Because of you, a lot of people are getting affected and improving their skills, and they grow in their life because of you.
Thank you.
And then you started developer in Q Park at in October 2017 to April 2018. You worked for 7 months there.
Yeah, I think that was the last project I did through Ford.net again, which was actually a project that was definitely in my area of the country, and it was very fun to work there. Q Park is, I don't know how, I think they're very international. They are like the big parking structure people, so they have all these parking garages where you can go in and you will press a button, and the bar goes up and you can go in there with your car and park there for a little, and then you have to go out and pay. That's the thing that they do. And what they were doing, they're making their parking garages smarter. So they were hanging cameras that would read like your license plate of your car, so you don't have to press the button and get the card, right? So they were definitely making some cool steps there, and also it was very different work than what I did before, basically, because this was very my very first experience with like stateless microservices architectures and that kind of stuff. So it was kind of hard to get started because like I said, it was something very different than what I did before. So it had a steep learning curve. There was this interview. I mean, always if you go do new projects, you still have to kind of interview to see if you're the right person for that job, if that's what they think. So yeah, there was already this interview, and he asked me questions like, "Do you have experience with this and that?" And I was just very honest with like a couple of things, like, "No, I don't know anything about it, but I do feel confident that I can find the resources to learn this stuff, right? Because I'm interested in most things, basically, at least for some period in time, and to try it out and see if it's something for me." So I just went through that interview and I said a couple of things like, okay, but I don't know, but if I would answer this question with the knowledge I have right now, I think it would be somewhere in this area, but I would find the solution, right? So they were happy with how I went through that. I did a lot of learning on the job, getting all the knowledge, and again, I had a really fun time there, with like working with Azure Service Fabric and a lot of new Azure services and the actor model and all kinds of things that were new to me. So that was really cool. But it was for a couple of months, and then I moved on. But it was a really fun and great learning experience, at least from like the technical side, with touching a lot of new products and new concepts.
Nice. And you worked as software engineer at Dot Control, data-driven creative agency, full time, April 2018 to May 2019, for 1 year, 2 months.
Yeah, so that was an actual new company. So this is no more project through Ford.net. This was an actual company that I started working for again, kind of like Kembit that we talked about before. And this was kind of like, this is a creative agency, like you already mentioned. So they were very big on like the animations and everything, very looking very nice and designer. So that was really cool. And I started there together with a good friend and also someone that I worked with earlier, together, and we were basically brought in for a cool project that they were working on, which had to do with like the logistics of fast food chains, so like McDonald's or other things, and the trucks that would bring all the inventory there. So they already built this whole web interface system before we even got there, which was really cool. And you could say like, hey, I need 5 boxes of fries this week or something, right? So they had that whole system, and if you would get the boxes, then something would be damaged, then you can report that as well. And it did a whole bunch of those things. But at some point, they also saw the need for like a mobile app. So me and my friend Steven were brought in to actually work on that mobile app, and we did that for 1 year and 2 months apparently. And what the really cool thing about working at this company is that you see a lot of times if you're working as a developer, then you're not only, maybe you have an architect deciding on like the high over architecture of the thing that you're building, or if the company is a little bit smaller, then you are the architect and the developer and the designer, right? Because you also have to make up the UI and I don't know, do something. And typically, including me, developers are not the best designers. So it works, it's functional. But the app maybe doesn't look that great, right? So that's a problem that you might be struggling with. And at this company, they were like, they had like, it was kind of the other way around. They had the designers and they had the people to make it look great, but they didn't have the people to create this mobile app. So that's where the two worlds came together, and it was a very fun challenge to, to the designs where they came up with to actually implement that, because some things are, I mean, anything is possible in software development, but it can cost a ridiculous amount of time, right? Or sometimes you just don't know how to do things. That's totally fine. So at some point they would come up with designs and we were like, I don't know, this is either going to take a lot of time and we're not even sure if we can then make it work. So it was a fun thing to actually work with designers and actually, create something that worked functionally and then also looked great. But it's then you suddenly have another challenge of working with the designers and saying sometimes like, yeah, I really like what you did here, what you designed here, but I'm not sure if we can make it work. So maybe we can change it a little bit to still make it look great, but also not spend a lot of time on just implementing the design, right? So and also together there, we sat together with the client a lot of times, who definitely also had a very clear view of how they would see this product developed. They really knew what they were looking for. They really knew what they wanted to create with this app. So that was great as well, because we would just have clear requirements to actually work with. So yeah, that was definitely a fun project as well.
Awesome. And you are an organizer at Dutch .NET Group in 2016 June to present, which means 5 years, 7 months you are working now.
Yeah, so that's also definitely at some point, like I said, that this was somewhere early on, somewhere just after my first job. I kind of like found out that it started with, I noticed a tweet from a local user group. They were asking for people who would maybe want to write an article for their magazine. So I thought like, yeah, that sounds like fun. Why not? So I did that, and that user group also did kind of like conferences, which is not like huge conferences, but small local ones, which is fine. And they asked after doing my article, like, hey, maybe you also want to do a session. So I did that. And then kind of like it got the ball rolling, and I started doing sessions, articles. I started a blog. I did that earlier, like a blog with like, hey, I'm going to start with this cross-platform development. Maybe other people will be interested as well. I started my blog, and people were picking up on that, and I got more views and more readers. So that was really cool. So suddenly I was doing all these things, and yeah, one of the things at some point was also like starting to organize things myself. So I think, like I said, like 5 years ago already, the meetups were very popular. So that was just really low level. We would find a company that would have a space where, I don't know, 20, 30 people could sit. We would order some pizzas, and we would find one or two people who could just do a session. Nothing too formal, nothing too official, just someone who is willing to talk about something they really love, something they're working on, and would love to share that knowledge with other developers. So it was really low level, just some pizzas, some drinks, and someone who loved to talk about what they're working on. So yeah, that's kind of like the organizer part of the Dutch.net meetup group, where we would just try to bring those people together. Of course, now for the past couple of years, it has been hard because the in-person things have been canceled mostly with all the COVID stuff going on. So while it has already been 5 years, it's now a long period that we didn't really do anything because we didn't really transition to virtual ones, because there's a lot of virtual stuff going on right now with people who can organize that much better than us. But hopefully, whenever we get to meet more in person again, then we can bring back those evenings again, and bring together some people who love to hang out, have discussions, and learn from each other, basically.
Awesome. And you are owner, developer, and a dreamer of verslu.is. It's a freelance.
Yeah, so that's my last name, and it's also the domain name, so that's kind of like a funny thing there, but it's also very hard to pronounce always for all people. So, but anyway, it's also something not very professional, because what is very common here in the Netherlands, at least, is that you kind of like work at one company, which is the 99% of your income, and then next to that you have like your own business. Which is nothing more than registering here at the Chamber of Commerce, and that's kind of it. But that allows you to send invoices to other people, and since I was studying in school, I kind of like I think a lot of people start with web development, so did I. So I designed a couple of websites, I did some hosting for some people, some things like that, and at some point, I did some side projects here and there, just in my own personal name. Always, of course, clearly communicating with the company that I worked at the time. Like, hey, I might be doing this. Is that okay? Does that not interfere with my regular job? So, so I have my own company, but it's not really doing that much besides a couple of side projects here and there. And it just makes it a little bit easier to just have that. And it cost me nothing basically to have my own business. So then whenever I feel like doing a little side project, at some point I also did with another friend of mine, we started to do a couple of training sessions on our own, because at that time I worked at a company that didn't really do the training sessions, but I still would love to do that. So he asked me like, hey, I want to start doing some training sessions, but I don't want to do it alone. I know you would love to do that as well. Can we do something together? So we developed some kind of training material. In this case, it was like more modern application development on Azure. So it was a lot about Azure functions and just the modern cloud architecture, basically cloud apps. And we developed some materials for that, and we did a training session with, 5 to 10 people or something, which was really fun. And also that makes it a little bit easier, right? Because now I have my own company, so it's easier to kind of like divide the income that we got from that, because I would just send him an invoice for a certain amount, and that would make it a little bit easier. So that's basically like, my own company. And I also was building a couple of apps in like my personal name, right? They're all not published anymore because it didn't really become popular. But maybe someday I have this idea for an app, and that will make me $1 million, and that would make it a little bit easier if you have your own company, right? That just make those kinds of things a little bit easier. So that's kind of like the reason why I have that.
Great. And you're a content team contributor at Technorama NL, and
Yeah.
you're from October 2017 till now, present 4 years, 4 months.
Absolutely. Yeah. So that's like I said earlier with the Dutch.net group, that was like more low level meetup kind of things. And Techorama is a very big conference here. It started in Belgium, which is, right below the Netherlands. And they started this conference. I think for the last in-person edition, there was like 1,500 people or something, and 10 tracks going simultaneously with all kind of big names from the industry, especially like at Microsoft with Scott Guthrie and Scott Hanselman, if that's some names that you might know. So Yeah, that's a really big conference, and at some point they thought like, hey, we want to expand and we want to come to the Netherlands, which is a logical choice because it's right next door. And then what they did, and I thought that was really smart, the organizers of the Techorama Belgium, they would come to the Netherlands and they were like, hey, we can take the whole crew from Belgium to the Netherlands, but it's probably much more powerful to look in the Dutch community to see members who are there actively sharing knowledge and being out there in the community helping people, and ask those people to be organizers and helping out with evaluating sessions for a conference as well, so that we also have a crew in the Netherlands, and they can help out with marketing the event, of course, and organizing all kinds of things. So yeah, this was really cool to be part of this bigger event as well, and that started like 4 years ago. But again, we did 2 editions, and then all the COVID hit, so the last 2 editions have been canceled. But we have high hopes that this year we will get an in-person edition again, also in the Netherlands. And it's really cool because it's also, if you know a little bit about the conferences. What they do is they set out a call for speakers or a call for papers. It's called differently from time to time, and then speakers like maybe like me can submit a session to that conference, right? And I have like, hey, I want to talk about .NET MAUI, and I send that session to the conference, and then the conference, they get a lot of submissions by now because a lot of people have discovered that speaking is something that they love doing. And then we would have to go through the list with like, hey, we want to see this session because it sounds interesting. And there's a lot of sessions to go through. So we have to disappoint some people, which is not fun to do. But then we also get to make a lot of people happy who get to speak at our conference. So that is like the core of what we do with like the content stuff that you mentioned. But also, and that's equally important, is be there on that day. And make sure that everything goes smooth, right? That the speaker is there on time, that the attendees are there. Well, the attendees will be showing up automatically, hopefully. But still, there's always something unexpected that happens. So also on that day, you're running around as crew. We have the walkie-talkies, we have the in-ear things. We look like FBI agents. And we're constantly talking to each other like, hey, oh my gosh, we have technical problems in room 1. So then someone has to run out with a dongle to bring something and fix the technical problems, right? So that's always very stressful, but also very fun. So yeah, that's kind of like part of this bigger conference that they asked me at some point to also help out with. So that was really an honor for me to do, and I hope that we can get to do it again soon.
Awesome. And you are an event organizer and a founder of Exam Expert Day part-time, and you're doing this from October 2017 present, 4 years 4 months.
Yeah. So that's something that I came up with a couple of friends myself. So like I already mentioned a couple of times, like Xamarin Forms is a product now owned by Microsoft, and I was working with that product, building the apps, building cross-platform apps, and I really loved that stuff. And at that time, 2017, I think you said, so that's already 4 or 5 years. There wasn't really a specific event for Xamarin. So what we decided to do, which again started as a small meetup with, I don't know, 20, 30 people, we just got together and we would just hang out and have some sessions about specific Xamarin and cross-mobile development. So that was really cool. And then after 1 year, we decided like, hey, do we maybe want to do it again? So in 2018, we did it again. And then suddenly we had 50 people. And then for a couple of years, we did it again and again. And at our peak, I think we had like just over 100 people. So we were also starting to grow into our little own event, which was really cool. And we even had like 2 or 3 sessions now in parallel. So people fly, and that's like the really crazy part. So it's a free event. Everyone can come for free. We have a couple of sponsors who will sponsor us with some lunch, and the location would always be the Microsoft office in Cologne in Germany, which is not far from here. So everything we got from sponsors, but the people, so the speakers, they would come, they would fly, they would pay for their own flight, for their own ticket to come to us. There were even attendees, so they just wanted to see this content. They would drive for a long time, or they would also pay for their own ticket to come to us, just because they love this product, they love this community, and that's like something that I'm really thankful for. So that's really amazing that all those people are doing that because of some event that we came up with and thought it would be fun for some people living around this area. But now it grew into something this great. And of course, again, also here, we couldn't do it in person at some point. So for this event, we did choose to go virtual. So we've now done it 2 times online on my YouTube channel, actually. So yeah, that was actually quite easier to organize than the in-person one, because now we just had to press the start go live button on our YouTube channel. But still, it was very stressful to get all the speakers at the right time and do a little tech check and see if their sound was okay and that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's not really that formal. It's just friends hanging out mostly. So we have a lot of fun mostly, and it's not if something goes wrong, then we can laugh about it, and it's not like, oh my gosh, we're panicking. So I think a lot of people like that. We had a good number of viewers. Also, that grew from last year to this year. But of course, we just hope to go back to in person, which is sad on one hand, because then people from literally the other part of the world cannot come and watch anymore. But on the other hand, I think a big part of the power of our conference was, that we had this in person and vibe, and it was just great to hang out with all those people and meeting people and sharing experiences. So yeah, that's a little event that I organized with a couple of friends, and I'm really proud of it.
Awesome. And finally, you settled down in Microsoft as a senior software developer.
Oh my gosh, yes. Can you believe it? I can't. Yeah, I'm working here now for 2.5 years, I think. Yeah, 2.5. In June, it's going to be 3 years already. It flew by. Yeah, so what happened is, like I said, somewhere early on in my career, I started with like the doing the sessions, writing blogs, which went to writing a book. Wrote 3 books now. Did some video courses. So it's crazy. Basically, I just thought like, hey, wouldn't it be fun to do something like that? I want to have that experience as well, and I could see if I could, just make that happen, and I could. But at some point also, still, this is all mostly about examine forms, which is, like I mentioned, a open source project. So what I did at some point as well was like, hey, I thought like, I'm using this product for free and I do all this crazy stuff with it, which is awesome. But now it's maybe also time to contribute something back, which is something that is important to do in like the open source ecosystem, right? Because if people don't do that, then it's just a free product that at some point will probably stop being maintained because only people are taking and not really giving back, right? So I decided to look into that, but that was really scary. I mean, at that point, I was like, "Wow, the people at Microsoft, they're so brilliant, so smart. What value can I bring to their product, right?" Um, so what pushed me over the edge at some point is that a couple of the community members came together and said, like, "Hey, we have a number of issues which are very small. They should be very easy to solve." But the people at Microsoft are focused on like the bigger things, right? Implementing maybe the bigger new features. So these small things would be still be there. So wouldn't it be cool if, as a community, we would come together and we would pick up all those small things so that we would make our life easier because suddenly all those bugs are fixed, and make the lives for the people at Microsoft easier because now they don't have to worry about all these small issues floating around. So that kind of like pushed me over the edge because multiple people were now doing it who also didn't have the experience with open source or contributing back. And now we could learn from each other, right? Like, hey, how do you do this or how do you do that? So then I started contributing, and once I did one or two, I was like, okay, now I know how to kind of do this. I know my way around the code. The code, I thought again, this is Microsoft. This must be like mind-blowing rocket science code, but it's just code, right? You can write that code. So I thought like, okay, this is not as scary as I thought. So the most scary thing is probably to get started. So then whenever I had some time, I would start contributing back. I would start to pick up some issues. And then at some point, there was suddenly an opening on the team. So I thought, why not? Let's just apply. And in the Microsoft Careers portal, it's pretty easy to do. You just fill out some things and you press apply, and boom, that's it. And then I waited a really long time because, you can imagine for jobs at Microsoft, there's a lot of people that are applying for that. So it took a really long time. And by that time, I already knew some people on the team. So I was constantly asking them like, hey, do you know anything already? And also I did have an interview. So that already surprised me. Like, okay, they're even considering this. Because I'll be honest, I applied to jobs at Microsoft before, and then you would just get no message at all. And in the portal, it would just say, you're not selected. Boom, that's it. But now they suddenly want an interview, and the interview is very intense because it's like 4 hours, one person each hour, so four different persons, yeah, they would ask you like deeply technical things, like solve this little problem for me, but also like other things, like right, like the think back of a time where you had a conflict with a colleague. How did you solve that? Or think back to a time where you disagreed with your manager. I don't know, something, things like that, right? So they just try to get all this information about what kind of person you are. And I think what really helped me is that I was contributing before because they already knew who I was. They already knew a little bit about my work. Um, so I feel that really helped, right? So don't get me wrong, this is not a guarantee to get you a job at Microsoft if you do it this way, but I feel that that really helped. So, those interviews happened, and I didn't get a single assignment finished, I think. But the important thing there is to just talk again, like the interview I mentioned earlier. Just talk to like what you're thinking. What is your thought process, right? So I don't know exactly how to solve this right now. But if I were to solve this, I would maybe use recursion, or I would use this, and just talk about what you're thinking, right? That already helps them more than actually solving the problem, because what they want to know is what kind of person you are and how you're going to fix this. And they know that you're going to use Google, and they know that you're going to use Stack Overflow. That doesn't matter, right? So that's kind of the important thing. But I did that. I felt like I completely blew it, that I was not going to get the job because I did a bad job at the interview. It took a really, really, really long time, like 6 months, before I got the message like, hey, you're going to get a call by a recruiter, and yeah, you're it. You got the job. So, what? So yeah, that was really a surprise. It was never a goal for me to work at Microsoft, simply because I thought it wouldn't be possible, right, for someone like me to end up at Microsoft. But yeah, here I am. So that's really cool.
So you're communicating with the world through Twitch and YouTube channel and with your blogs. So why you want to tell? What is your intention? You are already doing your own work. You are doing development. You are communicating with the computer better. You know how things work. You know how to connect things, and you're doing well. Why this enthusiasm? Why you want to teach people?
Thank you. Yeah, so interesting question. At some point, someone at a company I worked asked, like, "Hey, why do you do it? I mean, there must be something, right? You want to become rich from it, or there's something that's in it for you, right?" And there truly isn't. I have no illusions that I'm going to be rich from my YouTube channel. I mean, I started now, like, with the pandemic, like, well, it's some time ago now, but I started at that time when it just started and I couldn't fly to conferences around the world and do sessions. And I thought like, I always wanted to do something with YouTube. So, why not use this time to actually do that? And it grew kind of like within a year from 0 to 10,000 subscribers, which is already amazing. I'd never expected that to happen. So, why do I do it? Really, no other reason than I love interacting with the community. I love helping other people. So either with their problems that they might have, like, you also then get a lot of questions like, hey, I'm trying to do this and it doesn't work, right? that's not a great question to ask. So as long as people also show a little bit of effort on their part, trying to explain to me what they've done and why it's not working, then I'm happy to help you. But also, with if you reach a certain amount of people that are following you or subscribe to you or looking at your content, then it kind of get hard to scale, right? There's thousands of people now watching me, so I can't help every one of them with their problems. So that's kind of the new challenge. But I love helping people that way. And what I will do, like these problems are kind of specific, so it's not really great to create content, or maybe there's some hint to create content around that. But what I would do is, if someone asked me a question, I would say like, hey, I would give them the answer, but I would also create a video or a blog from it. So because if one person has that question, then chances are that more people are having that question, right? So it will benefit more people, and I really love that for a couple of reasons. Because now, I mean, before it was just because I love doing that. Now I actually work on the product that I also talk about. And that is so valuable, I feel, because I work on the product. So I have the power to actually make changes, or to talk to my team and say, hey, maybe we should change something. I talk to the people that are actually maybe wanting to use our product, and I can convince them like, hey, this is a good choice because this and this and that. So maybe, I can get more people on board using our product. People already using our product might have some feedback or questions. I get to help them with their struggles, and at the same time get that feedback from them, and see like, hey, where can we improve our product? Maybe, we thought of something like this is going to be great. But if you're a developer from the other side, like I said, like that tunnel vision, right? We can think something is great, but the developer using it, that is the one that should feel this is working great, right? So maybe we got stuck in that tunnel, and we thought it would be great to work it this way, but the developers are saying something different. So I feel it's really valuable to be out there and get all that feedback. Of course, we have other people to do that as well. But I think it's also nice if you have a person on your development team that is willing to be out there, do the sessions, and create content like me. It's really valuable to have that engineer out there as well, so that you not get the noise from the developer talking to the program manager, and then the program manager talking to the developers, right? There will also always be some information that is lost there. So I really enjoy doing that, and I think it's really valuable to do that as well.
So what do you think that worked for Microsoft to reach everywhere on this planet, who are into different professions, who are into different cultures? How this product, how Microsoft reached everywhere?
I mean, that's something really hard, right? So you're talking about like our mission statement, right? To empower every person on the planet to do more. I think that's about it. Yeah, that's hard. So I'm trying to do my part with basically what I'm telling you right now, because that's also part of the reason like why. Because like I said, like just now, right? Like, do you want to get rich with all of this? No. If I wanted to get rich, I would make these courses on Pluralsight or Udemy or something like that, right? And people would have to pay for them to watch them. I don't do that, which is a very conscious decision. So the only thing I kind of have is memberships on my YouTube channel, where you get early access to videos. But that's about it. And that's only if you have something to spare and you like what I do, right? So that's great. If you want to give back that way, that's awesome. But all my videos, all my content will be out there for free for everyone to watch, because I feel that is definitely part of like the inclusiveness, that if you do not have the possibilities for whatever reason to get that degree at the right school, and you still want to get started with cross-platform development with .NET and .NET MAUI, then you can come to my channel and you can still get started with it, right? As long as you have access to a computer and all those kinds of things. But it's really hard, right? I mean, for some people the challenge is to get the right degree. For other people, it's even getting access to a computer or an internet connection. And what I would love to do is send them a CD with all my content, but of course that's not possible. So I'm trying to do whatever I can to make it at least free and accessible for everyone, as much as possible. And that's kind of like my contribution to Microsoft's mission to empower every person on the planet to achieve more. But as Microsoft as a whole, there's a lot of people at Microsoft working, and we're really being pressed to make this mission happen. So I think everyone is doing it in their own way. And with the product that we're working on, we now have a big focus also on making the accessibility features better with the product, so that even if the developers are building with our products, that also the accessibility is great with the apps that people are putting out there. And also, the whole .NET MAUI stuff is free as well. It's open source, so everyone can come in and join and do all the things, inspect what's going on there. So yeah, I think that is, we're Microsoft. We still have to make money somehow. But at least for me, it's like, I try to make it as available as possible for people to get started, and that is kind of like my contribution to this.
So at last, do you have anything to say to the Microsoft experts who are watching and listening to our conversation from anywhere on this planet about the betterment of Microsoft and the products that helps in making more people, more human beings, and for the betterment of their life?
Wow. Well, the Microsoft experts, if the Microsoft experts are already watching, then I kind of assume that they already are, also see the importance of what we're trying to do with that mission to empower people. But if you are not sure how to do it or how you can do even better, then make sure to contact me. I'm sure that you will add some links or whatever to my profile. So make sure to contact me if you want to know more, and maybe we can figure out a way to help you if you want to do more there. But I'm sure that you're already doing great stuff out there. So thank you so much for that, because even the people who are not working at Microsoft, I still see a lot of people out there doing great things to contribute to this mission as well, just because they're so passionate about all that, and making sure that we include all the people in this technical advancements, because it's very easy to forget that I am lucky enough that I have full vision, I have full hearing, but if you're deaf or blind, then and that's just a very regular disability, right? I mean, there's much more subtle ones with like mental issues or things that you can't see. So there's so many, and that also makes it very hard to make it right for everyone. But as long as we try and we communicate about it, and we just try to make it better for everyone, I think that is something we won't get it right every time, all the time. But as long as we try and we be nice for each other, then that is the most important thing.
So I'll put all your web links in the description of this video. People who finds our video on YouTube
Awesome.
can see the work that you're doing and can learn a lot from you.
Thank you.
And what do you say as a Microsoft expert? What do you say about my work? Have you seen any videos of mine on YouTube?
I definitely have looked at a couple of videos. Of course, I must be honest, you contacted me, and I didn't see anything from before then, but because you contacted me now, I had to watch some things. And I think it's really great what you're doing, because this is people working in the field, working at a local company somewhere, which is great. Again, that's what I said a couple of times, right? I mean, not all people can work at Microsoft, or not all people can work at Amazon, or and it all depends on what your goals are, right? I mean, if you are happy working 9 to 5, just working on JavaScript, that's perfectly fine, right? We don't need to convince everyone to be on one language or one company or whatever. So it's all about what is in it for you. And I feel that that's in something important to keep in mind. And I think that's something that you really bring with your content, to get people together from different parts of the world, different companies, different, maybe not even technology, working in technology, and just showing people all kinds of sides that there is to it. There's not one thing that we all should strive for, right? It can be different goals, different things that make you happy. And I think it's really important to kind of like show that as well, what you're doing with your content, because you see a lot of people like only sharing their successes on social media, right? With like, hey, I'm awesome, and yes, I love working at Microsoft, and I do love working at Microsoft, but it took me a long time to get there. It wasn't even my goal. I thought I could never do it. And I think it's important to also hear that side of the story, because, so that people realize that, we're just people. and B, it can also happen for you if that's something what you want, right? So I really feel the power of your videos is that, yeah, you get those people together, have them to tell their honest stories about all their working experience. And also I like the question about what is the thing that you remember most. And I work at Microsoft and I dropped a table in production. Actually, I worked at Microsoft also at a different team at GitHub Codespaces for a little while. Where I definitely messed up some things as well. And that's a service that has to run 24/7. Whenever something is wrong, they will call you out of bed and you have to fix it. So things definitely went wrong there as well, and we just have to fix it. So it's not like, we're perfect or we're the most amazing human beings ever. But we all do our best, and yeah, if it can happen for me, it can happen for you as well. So, and that's kind of like what I feel is really powerful about your content.
So thank you so much for giving me opportunity to interview for my YouTube channel and podcast,
Thanks
and
for having me.
allowing me to ask a few questions and teaching and educating a lot to me and to my
Absolutely.
audience.
It's my pleasure.
So keep going, keep doing what you love. I'm sure because of you, Microsoft, and also people who are getting contribution from you in any medium through your website or through your YouTube channel or through your Twitch channel, they'll get affected, and because of you, the world become more productive and constructive and create some things
Oh,
which are helpful for more people on the planet.
thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Can I put this video on my YouTube channel with your permission?
Yeah, absolutely.
And also, can I put this audio and video clip on my podcast, website, internet, social media, everywhere with your permission?
Yep, absolutely.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.